Welcome back to Act 4 of Macbeth. The plot thickens, and in Scene 1, we meet the witches again, and they are casting some sort of spell. So they are chanting their magic spells here when we meet them. Thrice the brinded cat hath mewed, thrice and once the hedge pig whined. Harpier cries, "'Tis time, 'tis time!" Round about the cauldron go, in the poisoned entrails throw. Toad, that under cold stone days and nights has 31 sweltered venom sleeping got, boil thou first in the charmed pot. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Fillet of a finny snake, in the cauldron boil and bake. Eye of newt and toe of frog, wool of bat and tongue of dog. Adder's fork and blindworm's sting, lizard's leg and howlet's wing. For a charm of powerful trouble, like a hell broth boil and bubble. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Scale of dragon, tooth of wolf, witch's mummy, maw and gulf of the ravened sea salt shark. Root of hemlock digged in the dark, liver of blaspheming Jew, gall of goat and slips of yew, slivered in the moon's eclipse, nose of Turk and Tartar's lips, finger of a birth-strangled babe, ditch delivered by a drab, make the gruel thick and slab, and thereto a tiger's chaudron for the ingredients of our cauldron. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Cool it with a baboon's blood, then the charm is firm and good. Hecate comes in. Remember, she's the patron goddess of the witches. "Oh, well done, I commend your pains, and everyone shall share in the gains. And now about the cauldron sing, like elves and fairies in a ring, enchanting all that you put in." All right, Hecate, it says, retires, she leaves, but Macbeth is coming. Remember, Macbeth has sworn he's going to go consult them, and he's going to make them tell him all the truth. The second witch says, "By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes. Open locks, whoever knocks." Macbeth says, "How now, you secret black and midnight hags? What is it you do?" "A deed without a name." "I conjure you, by that which you profess, howe'er you come to know it, answer me. Though you untie the winds and let them fight against the churches, though the yesty waves confound and swallow navigation up, though bladed corn be lodged and trees blown down, though castles topple on their warders' heads, though palaces and pyramids do slope their heads to their foundations, though the treasure of nature's germans tumble all together, till the destruction sicken, answer me to what I ask you. I don't care if it tears the whole world apart. You answer me. Speak, demand, we'll answer. Say if thou'dst rather hear it from our mouths or from our masters." Who do you think their masters could be? Sounds like demons to me. But Macbeth says, "Call 'em. Let me see 'em. I want to see your masters." All right, they go back to their cauldron. "Pour in sow's blood that hath eaten her 9 Pharaoh, grease that's sweaten from the murder's gibbet, throw into the flame. Come high or low, thyself and office deftly show." So they're calling up their masters. And the first thing that happens is, up out of this cauldron, a vision appears. It says an armed head. It means just a head, but it's wearing a helmet. It's armed in armor. Macbeth tries to speak to it. Tell me, thou unknown power." And they said, "He knows thy thought. He knows what you're thinking. You don't have to ask out loud." The apparition says, "Macbeth, Macbeth, Macbeth, beware Macduff, beware the Thane of Fife. Dismiss me, enough." And it disappears. "Whate'er thou art, for thy good caution thanks. Thou hast harped my fear aright. But one word more. He will not be commanded. All right. So he says, I was thinking Macduff was up to no good. I had it in for him already, and you agreed with me. Good. But he wants to ask him something else. The witch says, he will not be commanded. Here's another, more potent than the first, and another vision arises. A bloody child. Macbeth, Macbeth, Macbeth. Had I 3 ears, I'd hear thee. Be bloody, bold, and resolute. Laugh to scorn the power of man, for none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. But this seems like very good news. No human being, nobody born of woman can harm you. Macbeth says, then live, Macduff. What need I fear of thee? But yet I'll make assurance double sure, and take a bond of fate. Thou shalt not live, that I may tell pale-hearted fear it lies, and sleep in spite of thunder. All right, well, I'm assuming Macduff is born of woman, and so I don't need to fear him. However, I'm going to kill him anyway, just to make sure. All right. A third vision arises. A crowned child with a tree in his hand. Macbeth says, what is this that rises like the issue of a king, that wears upon his baby brow the round and top of sovereignty? The witches say, listen, but speak not to it. And the third apparition tells him, be lion-mettled, proud, and take no care who chafes, who frets, or where conspirers are. Macbeth shall never vanquished be, until great Birnam Wood to high Dunsinane Hill shall come against him. Macbeth will never be conquered until the forest marches up to your castle. Macbeth says, that will never be. Who can impress the forest? Bid the tree unfix his earthbound root. Sweet bodements, good. Rebellion's head, rise never till the wood of Birnam rise, and our high-placed Macbeth shall live the lease of nature, pay his breath to time and mortal custom. Well, if I'm not going to be conquered till the forest marches on my castle, then I'm just going to die of old age of natural causes. Yet my heart throbs to know one thing. Tell me, if your art can tell so much, shall Banquo's issue ever reign in this kingdom? They tell him, seek to know no more. I will be satisfied. Deny me this, and an eternal curse fall on you. Let me know. Why sings this cauldron? And what noise is this? Show, show, show. Show his eyes and grieve his heart. Come like shadows, so depart. And a vision of 8 kings. The last, it says, with a glass in his hand, a mirror. Banquo's ghost is following them all. And Macbeth says, thou art too like the spirit of Banquo. Down! Thy crown doth sear mine eyeballs, and thy hair, thou other gold-bound brow, is like the first. A third is like the former. They all look alike. In other words, they're all family members. And Banquo is following up the train. Filthy hags, why do you show me this? A fourth. Oh, start, eyes. What, will the line stretch out to the crack of doom? Another yet, a 7th. I'll see no more, and yet the 8th appears, who bears a glass which shows me many more. And some I see that twofold balls and triple scepters carry. Horrible sight! Now I see 'tis true, for the blood-boltered Banquo smiles upon me and points at them for his. What, is this so? The first witch says, aye, sir, all this is so. But why stands a Macbeth thus amazedly? Come, sisters, cheer we up his sprites, and show the best of our delights. I'll charm the air to give a sound, while you perform your antic round, that this great king may kindly say, our duties did his welcome pay. The music plays, the witches dance, and then they vanish. Where are they? Gone? Let this pernicious hour stand I accursed in the calendar. Come in, without there. He's been in a cave, and Lennox is waiting outside. He says, what's your grace's will? Saw you the weird sisters? No, my lord. Came they not by you? No, indeed, my lord. infected be the air whereon they ride, and damned all those that trust them. I did hear the galloping of horse. Who was it came by? 'Tis 2 or 3, my lord, that bring you word Macduff is fled to England. Fled to England! Ay, my good lord. Time, thou anticipatest my dread exploits. Oh, he got away before I could kill him. The flighty purpose never is o'ertook unless the deed go with it. The flighty purpose never is o'ertook unless the deed go with it. You know what? You got to do it as soon as you think it, or you miss the chance. From this moment, the very firstlings of my heart shall be the firstlings of my hand. I'm not even going to think about my plans anymore. I'm just going to do it as soon as it pops in my head. And even now, to crown my thoughts with acts, be it thought and done. The castle of Macduff I will surprise, seize upon Fife, give to the edge of the sword his wife, his babes, and all unfortunate souls that trace him in his line. No boasting like a fool. This deed I'll do before this purpose cool. But no more sights. Where are these gentlemen? Come, bring me where they are. All right. So Macduff has gotten away, but Macbeth says, doesn't matter, I'm going to kill his whole family. And I'm not going to stop and think about it. I'm just going to do it. So scene 2, we go to Fife, which is Macduff's castle. And we meet Lady Macduff, her son, and Ross, one of the thanes who has come to warn her. You are in danger. You need to get out. Now she feels like maybe Macduff has abandoned her. She doesn't understand why Macduff would leave. She doesn't understand the politics behind this and the danger. Maybe she doesn't fully understand how evil Macbeth is. And her husband Macduff hasn't informed her. Lady Macduff says, what had he done to make him fly the land? Ross says, you must have patience, madam. He had none. His flight was madness. When our actions do not, our fears do make us traitors. You know, he didn't have anything to fear. He wasn't treacherous, but when you run away, it makes you look guilty. Ross says, you know not whether it was his wisdom or his fear. Wisdom? To leave his wife, to leave his babes, his mansion and his titles, in a place from whence himself does fly? He loves us not. He wants the natural touch. For the poor wren, the most diminutive of birds, will fight her young ones in the nest against the owl. All is the fear, and nothing is the love, as little is the wisdom, where the flight so runs against all reason. Ross says, my dearest coz, I pray you school yourself. But for your husband, he is noble, wise, judicious, and best knows the fits of the season. I dare not speak much further, but cruel are the times when we are traitors and do not know ourselves, when we hold rumor from what we fear, yet know not what we fear, but float upon a wild and violent sea each way and move. I take my leave of you. Shall not be long, but I'll be here again. Things at the worst will cease, or else climb upward to what they were before. You know, when you get to the bottom, there's no way up. There's no way out but up. And things in Scotland are in a pretty sorry shape. My pretty cousin, blessing upon you. She says, fathered he is. She's looking at her son. Fathered he is, and yet fatherless. I am so much a fool should I stay longer. It would be my disgrace and your discomfort. I take my leave at once. And he leaves. Lady Macduff talks to her son. She says, Sirrah, your father's dead. And what will you do now? How will you live? As birds do, mother. What, with worms and flies? With what I get, I mean, and so do they. Poor bird, thou'lt never fear the net nor lime, the pitfall nor the gin. Why should I, mother? Poor birds they are not set for. My father is not dead, for all your saying. Yes, he is dead. How wilt thou do for a father? Nay, how wilt thou do for a husband? Well, I can buy me 20 at the market. Then you'll buy him to sell him again. Thou speaks with all thy wit, and yet in faith with wit enough for thee. Was my father a traitor, mother? Aye, that he was. What is a traitor? Why, one that swears and lies. And be all traitors that do so? Everyone that does so is a traitor and must be hanged. And must they all be hanged that swear and lie? Every one. Who must hang them? Why, the honest men. then the liars and swearers are fools, for there are liars and swearers enow to beat the honest men and hang them up. There are more swearers and liars, there are more perjurers and traitors than there are honest men. If all the swearers and liars got together, they could overcome all the honest men. Now God help thee, poor monkey, but how wilt thou do for a father? If he were dead, you'd weep for him. If you would not, it were a good sign that I should quickly have a new father. Poor prattler, how thou talk'st. Now here comes the messenger. Bless you, fair dame. I'm not to you known, though in your state of honor I am perfect. I doubt some danger does approach you nearly. If you will take a homely man's advice, be not found here. Methinks, be not found here. Hence with your little ones. To fright you thus, methinks I am too savage. To do worse to you were fell cruelty, which is too nigh your person. Heaven preserve you. I dare abide no longer. He tells her, you need to get out. You need to get out now. Whither should I fly? I have done no harm. But I remember now I am in this earthly world, where to do harm is often laudable, and to do good sometime accounted dangerous folly. Why then, alas, do I put up that womanly defense to say I have done no harm? What are these faces? Suddenly in come some strangers, and Shakespeare tells us they are murderers. Where's your husband? I hope in no place so unsanctified where such as thou mayst find him. He's a traitor. The son says, Thou liest, thou shag-eared villain. What, you egg? Stabs the son. Young fry of treachery. He has killed me, mother. Run away, I pray you. And he dies, and Lady Macduff runs off crying, Murder, murder. The scene ends. Next, we are transported to England. Remember Malcolm, Duncan's eldest son, the crown prince, who should be king right now, has run away to England. And he is staying with the King of England, Edward, and hoping to get backing from Edward, that he can get forces to come back and take the crown back. And Macduff, we heard, has fled to England. He's fled to have a conference with Malcolm and try to convince Malcolm to come home and help them because they are suffering under the tyranny of Macbeth. Malcolm says, Let us seek out some desolate shade, and there weep our sad bosoms empty. Macduff says, Let us rather hold fast the mortal sword, and like good men bestride our downfall and birthdom. Each new morn, new widows howl, new orphans cry, new sorrows strike heaven on the face, that it resounds as if it felt with England, with Scotland, and yelled out like syllable of dolor. What I believe, I'll wail. What know, believe. And what I can redress, as I shall find the time to friend, I will. What you have spoke, it may be so, perchance. This tyrant, whose sole name blisters on our tongues, was once thought honest. You have loved him well. He hath not touched you yet. I am young, but something you may deserve of him through me, and wisdom to offer up a weak, poor, innocent lamb to appease an angry God. Okay, Malcolm doesn't really trust Macduff. He says, you know what you're telling me, mass murders and weeping, it may be true. It may be not. Maybe you're just trying to lure me to come back. Maybe you're setting me up. He says, this tyrant, you have loved him well. This guy was once your friend. He was your comrade in arms. Remember the beginning of the play, where they're off fighting the rebels together. And Macbeth was a mighty warrior for King Duncan. Malcolm says, you were his friend once. Maybe you still are. Maybe he's paying you to get me to come home. Macduff says, I am not treacherous. Malcolm says, but Macbeth is. A good and virtuous nature may recoil in an imperial charge. But I shall crave your pardon. That which you are, my thoughts cannot transpose. Angels are bright still, though the brightest fell. Though all things foul would wear the brows of grace, yet grace must still look so. All right, you look innocent to me, Macduff, and just because Macbeth isn't doesn't mean you aren't either. Macduff says, I have lost my hopes. If you don't trust me and you don't come back, I've got no more hope. Malcolm says, perchance even there where I did find my doubts. Why in that rawness left you wife and child? Those precious motives, those strong knots of love without leave-taking. If you're so scared, why did you leave your wife and family alone? I pray you, let not my jealousies be your dishonors, but mine own safeties. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm not trying to dishonor you. I'm just trying to look out for my own safety. You may be rightly just, whatever I shall think. Macduff is getting very depressed with this interview because he can't get Malcolm to believe him. Bleed, bleed, poor country, great tyranny, lay thou thy basis sure, for goodness dare not check thee. Wear thou thy wrongs, the title is afeard. Fare thee well, Lord. I would not be the villain that thou think'st for the whole space that in the tyrant's grasp, and the rich east to boot. Malcolm says, be not offended. I speak not as in absolute fear of you. I think our country sinks beneath the yoke. It weeps, it bleeds, and each new day a gash is added to her wounds. I think withal there would be hands uplifted in my right. And here from gracious England have I offer of goodly thousands. But for all this, when I shall tread upon the tyrant's head, or wear it on my sword, yet my poor country shall have more vices than it had before, more suffer and more sundry ways than ever, by him that shall succeed. Malcolm just told him something shocking. He said, you know what? I know Macbeth's evil. And if I come back and I kill him and I take over, you know what? Scotland's going to suffer even worse. And he's going to tell him now what a terrible person he is. What a terrible person he himself, Malcolm, is. Macduff says, what should he be? It is myself, I mean, in whom I know all the particulars of vice, so grafted that when they shall be opened, black Macbeth will seem as pure as snow, and the poor state esteem him as a lamb, being compared with my confineless harms. Macduff is shocked. Not in the legions of horrid hell can come a devil more damned in evils to top Macbeth. I grant him bloody, luxurious, avaricious, false, deceitful, sudden, malicious, smacking of every sin that has a name. But there's no bottom, none, in my voluptuousness. Your wives, your daughters, your matrons, and your maids could not fill up the cistern of my lust, and my desire all continent impediments would o'erbear, that did oppose my will. Better Macbeth than such a one to reign. I'm going to go after all your women. None of your women are going to be safe. Macduff says, boundless intemperance in nature is a tyranny. It hath been the untimely emptying of the happy throne and the fall of many kings. But fear not yet to take upon you that which is yours. You may convey your pleasures in a spacious plenty, and yet seem cold, the time you may so hoodwink. We have willing dames enough. There cannot be that vulture in you to devour so many as will to greatness dedicate themselves, finding it so inclined. Okay, that's not good. It's not good that you can't keep a handle on your lust for women. But, there's got to be enough willing women in Scotland to satisfy you. Malcolm says, with this, there grows in my most ill-composed affection such a staunchless avarice, greed, that were I king, I should cut off the nobles for their lands, desire his jewels and this other's house, and my more having would be as a sauce to make me hunger more, that I should forge quarrels unjust against the good and loyal, destroying them for wealth. I'm also greedy. I'll ravage your lands, I'll steal all your stuff. Macduff says, this avarice sticks deeper, grows with more pernicious root than summer-seeming lust, and it hath been the sword of our slain kings. Yet do not fear, Scotland hath foisons to fill up your will of your mere own. All these are portable, with other graces weighed. All right. Scotland also has enough riches to satisfy you, as long as there are other graces weighed against it. Malcolm says, but I have none. The king becoming graces as justice, verity, temperance, stableness, bounty, perseverance, mercy, lowliness, devotion, patience, courage, fortitude. I have no relish of them, but abound in the division of each several crime, acting it many ways. Nay, had I power, I should pour the sweet milk of concord into hell, uproar the universal peace, confound all unity on earth. Macduff, this is breaking his heart. Oh, Scotland, Scotland! If such a one be fit to govern, speak. I am as I've spoken. Macduff says, fit to govern? No, not to live. O nation miserable, with an untitled tyrant, bloody sceptred, when shalt thou see thy wholesome days again? Since that the truest issue of thy throne by his own interdiction stands accursed, and does blaspheme his breed. What are we going to do when the very one who's the rightful king says he's a rotter? Thy royal father was a most sainted king. The queen that bore thee, oftener upon her knees than on her feet, died every day she lived. She was more on her knees than on her feet. Your mother prayed constantly. Fare thee well. These evils thou repeatest upon thyself have banished me from Scotland. O my breast, thy hope ends here. I give up. If it's a choice between this or Macbeth or permanent exile from Scotland, I guess I'm going to have to choose permanent exile, because I can't put up with Macbeth, and I can't put up with someone like you, Malcolm, that you describe yourself to be. Malcolm says, Macduff, this noble passion, child of integrity, hath from my soul wiped the black scruples, reconciled my thoughts to thy good truth and honor. Devilish Macbeth by many of these trains hath sought to win me into his power, and modest wisdom plucks me from over-credulous haste. But God above deal between thee and me. For even now I put myself to thy direction, and here unspeak mine own detraction. Here abjure the taints and blames I laid upon myself, for strangers to my nature. Macduff, I was only testing you. That is not what I am like. I wanted to see if you would continue to say, oh, come on. We don't care how evil you are and how wicked you are. Just come anyway. Because if you did that, I might suspect you don't really want me to rule. You just want me to lure me home and get me in Macbeth's clutches. But since you reacted that way, you really do want me to rule. You're really honest. And I'll tell you the truth, Macduff. I don't have any of those faults. I am yet unknown to woman, never was forsworn, scarcely have coveted what was mine own, at no time broke my faith, would not betray the devil to his fellow, and delight no less in truth than life. My first false speaking was this upon myself. What I am truly is thine and my poor country's to command. Whither indeed, before thy here approach, old Seward, with 10,000 warlike men, already at a point, was setting forth. Now will together, and the chance of goodness be like our warranted quarrel. All right. I already have an army on the way. I have already recruited an army in England here, and they've already set out. But I didn't want to tell you that. I didn't want to trust you till I tested you. He says, why are you silent? Macduff says, such welcome and unwelcome things at once, 'tis hard to reconcile. He's in shock. He had already made his peace with the fact that it was all over for him. He can't go back to Scotland because there is no good ruler. And now suddenly all his hopes fled back again. A doctor appears, and Malcolm says, well, more anon. Comes the king forth, I pray you? He means the King of England, Edward. Aye, sir. There are a crew of wretched souls that stay his cure. Their malady convinces the great essay of art, but at his touch such sanctity hath heaven given his hand, they presently amend. The King of England is Edward the Confessor. He's noted as a particularly pious, godly King of England, and the rumor was he could heal people with his touch, that he had the gift of healing. And he comes forth, the people crowd around, the ill of his kingdom come, and he heals them. Malcolm says, I thank you, doctor. Macduff says, what's the disease he means? 'Tis called the evil, a most miraculous work in this good king, which often, since my here remain in England, I've seen him do. How he solicits heaven, himself best knows, but strangely visited people, all swoln and ulcerous, pitiful to the eye, the mere despair of surgery, he cures, hanging a golden stamp about their necks, put on with holy prayers, and 'tis spoken to the succeeding royalty, he leaves the healing benediction. He heals people, and it's even rumored that he is giving this gift to his offspring, his posterity. With this strange virtue he hath a heavenly gift of prophecy, and sundry blessings hang about his throne that speak him full of grace. Think about this. The King of Scotland right now is an evil. He brings death and destruction. The King of England is a good, and he brings health and healing. Ross comes in. Ross, the guy who had delivered to Macduff's family encouragement, hints of warning that Macduff knows more than he was telling. He's now traveled to England to see Macduff. And Macduff says, see, who comes here? My countryman, but yet I know him not. Malcolm isn't familiar with Ross. Macduff says, my ever-gentle cousin, welcome hither. I know him now. Good God, betimes remove the means that make us strangers. Sir, amen. Macduff questions him. Stands Scotland where it did? Alas, poor country, almost afraid to know itself. It cannot be called our mother, but our grave, where nothing but who knows nothing is once seen to smile, where sighs and groans and shrieks that rend the air are made, not marked. People scream and cry, and no one even pays any attention. Those noises are made, not marked. Where violent sorrow seems a modern ecstasy, the dead men's knell is there scarce asked for who, and good men's lives expire before the flowers in their caps, dying or ere they sicken. Macduff says, oh, relation too nice and yet too true. Malcolm says, what's the newest grief? That of an hour's age doth hiss the speaker. Each minute teems a new one. What do you mean, the newest grief? There's no newest grief. They're constantly tumbling one upon another. Macduff says, how does my wife? Why, well. And all my children? Well, too. The tyrant has not battered at their peace? No, they were well at peace when I did leave them. Yeah, they were at peace. They're dead. But he doesn't know how to tell him. Be not a niggard of your speech. How ghost? Ross says, when I came hither to transport the tidings, which I have heavily borne, there ran a rumour of many worthy fellows that were out, which was to my belief witnessed the rather, for that I saw the tyrant's power afoot. Now is the time of help. Your eye in Scotland would create soldiers, make our women fight to doff their dire distresses. Malcolm, we need you. Just your presence in England would make the women pick up weapons and fight. Malcolm says, be it their comfort, we are coming thither. Gracious England hath lent us good seaward and 10,000 men. An older and a better soldier none than Christendom gives out. Would I could answer this comfort with the like, but I have words that would be howled out in the desert air, where hearing should not latch them. Macduff says, what concern they? The general cause? Or is it a fee grief due to some single breast? Do you have bad news for the general kingdom, or is it bad news for someone in particular? Ross says, no mind that's honest, but in it shares some woe, though the main part pertains to you alone. He says, if it be mine, keep it not from me, quickly let me have it. Ross says, let not your ears despise my tongue forever, which shall possess them of the heaviest sound that ever yet they heard. Macduff says, I guess at it. I think I know what you're going to tell me. Ross says, your castle is surprised, your wife and babes savagely slaughtered, to relate the manner whereon the quarry of these murdered deer to add the death of you. Malcolm says, merciful heaven! What, man? Ne'er pull your hat upon your brows. Give sorrow words. The grief that does not speak whispers the o'erfraught heart and bids it break. Macduff, let it out. Let it out. Macduff, my children too? Wife, children, servants, all that could be found. And I must be from thence? My wife killed too? I have said. Malcolm says, be comforted. Let's make us medicines of our great revenge to cure this deadly grief. You're suffering right now, Macduff. Let's use revenge as a medicine for it. Macduff says, he has no children. All my pretty ones? Did you say all? Oh, hellkite, all? What, all my pretty chickens and their dam at one fell swoop? Malcolm says, dispute it like a man. Stand up to this grief. Macduff says, I shall do so, but I must also feel it as a man. I cannot but remember such things were that were most precious to me. Did heaven look on and would not take their part? Sinful Macduff, they were all struck for thee. Not that I am, not for their own demerits, but for mine, fell slaughter on their souls. Heaven rest them now. This is my fault. They were killed because of me. They were killed because Macbeth hated me. Be this the whetstone of your sword. Let grief convert to anger. Blunt not the heart, enrage it. Macduff says, oh, I could play the woman with mine eyes and braggart with my tongue. But gentle heavens cut short all intermission. Front to front bring thou this fiend of Scotland and myself. Within my sword's length set him. If he scape, heaven forgive him too. Malcolm says, this tune goes manly. Come, go we to the king. Our power is ready. Our lack is nothing but our leave. There's nothing waiting but for us to join them and to head out. Macbeth is ripe for shaking, and the powers above put on their instruments. Receive what cheer you may. The night is long that never finds the day. And we end Act 4.